temporarily, not saying, check it out. When at the cut, I look into my incisions and I see morbid visions, red symbols and strange men sacrificing pigeons after I
think this has also forced us as SPJs as well as presenters on ground to really read the story and take out that 1.5 line that we know is going to really appeal or get the message across to the younger audiences. Because after all, I think more than the fact of 2 minutes, it's eventually realizing that news is at a completely different pace now. We can't afford to have a 5-minute or 10-minute product that our listener is going to probably either not listen to all of it or skip or find other sources of quick information. So we've practiced quite a lot. It's a 10-hour relentless shift for the producers on the ground, but we have loyal listenership, and with the way we're expanding, it just goes on to show that they like what they're hearing.
Excellent. And about time, many people would say. Hania Ali, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
BBC Afrique, Global Newsbeat. BBC.
So, what else have you been writing about? Well, the recent documentary, Our Story, How to Be a Girl, has come in for praise.
My name is Marlo, and that's my daughter.
She isn't. Know what you're trying to say? No, I'm not. I didn't say that, but this was the first time I've ever done anything like this. I didn't even think about the consequences. Should have thought about them. When's the last time you were in...
Be good, be healthy, be safe. I'm going to talk to you again very soon.
In Beijing, and I hope you will join us every day to learn English. Example, bold, da, dun, da. So the would mean I would need to put something after it, right? Like a style or so. What I say, da.
Yeah. What were you doing out there? Well, I was answering an ad in the classifieds, trying to find a job. I had to park the car down the street from the place, and on my way back, I found this check on the sidewalk right near the bank on the corner.
Where'd you get the car?
It's my father's.
The car.
That's where part of my money went.
You got anything else you want to tell us?
Well, I did it. I admit that. I want to make it up somehow.
You're listening to Chichetti FM 5740, the voice of Mo.
Gave the men that arrested me 50 of it, and I spent $7.
Yeah, that's all on the record.
I did wrong. I'll pay the $7 back.
Well, you can take that up with the judge, Gleason. Friday, Romero, you want to step outside with me a minute?
Yeah, right.
Gleason, you wait here with that officer.
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
He's telling the truth. He's not the one we want.
How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'll go along with Ben.
Well, it makes 3 of us.
Monday, March 3rd, 5 p.m. We went in and checked with Don Myers. In carefully going over exemplars of Carver Gleason's handwriting, he had definitely eliminated him as our suspect. Carver Gleason remained in custody awaiting trial. 3 months went by. During this time, the burglaries and forgeries continued. Suspects were picked up, checked out, and released. We got nowhere. Tuesday, July 12th. We received a communication from Chief Adam Jensen of the San Diego Police Department, who stated he was forwarding a radiogram from Chief John W. Polsine of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin Police Department. The radiogram from Chief Polsine stated that his handwriting man in Milwaukee had identified the suspect's handwriting, as listed in one of the San Diego bulletins, as belonging to Philip E. Holloway. Holloway was arrested 2 years previous on a reckless driving charge. The physical description of the man matched closely with the one that we'd received on the suspect known to us as Harvey Fletcher. They further stated that although he was at one time a resident of Milwaukee, they had nothing further on him. It was just an outside chance, but we decided that in all probability this could be the suspect's true name, Philip E. Holloway. This information was forwarded to the postal authorities. Ben and I started to check through our channels to determine the whereabouts of the suspect, Philip E. Holloway, with a possible alias of Harvey Fletcher.
Full pardon can be as simple as contacting Pardons Canada or visiting pardons.org and requesting your record to be removed. And if you act now, your application and pardon process may be 100% free, courtesy of the Flower Corporation. That's right. Thanks to the Flower Corporation, your cannabis-related pardon may be 100% free. So contact Pardons Canada today by calling 647-557-8864 or visiting pardons.org and remove your cannabis-related offense today. With over 32 years of helping Canadians successfully remove their criminal past, you can trust in Pardons Canada to be fast and discreet. The number to call is 647-557-8864 or visit pardons.org and get started today. Thank you, Flower. This Sunday morning on Your Life, Your Money. To commute or not to commute. With a defined benefit pension, you may have some options. Should you leave it in place for a month?
Forever to get to the news, apparently.
You're listening to News 24.
Leaf is available at Shoppers Drug Mart, the Real Canadian Superstore, Walmart, in selected Rexall stores, and on Amazon. Learn more at painrelief.genecol.ca. To ensure this product is right for you, always read and follow the label.
Genecol makes you feel so good.
As a member of the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, Global News Radio 640 Toronto is committed to the highest standards of broadcasting. We believe in being accountable to you, the listener, in our information and entertainment programming. If you have a comment to make about our programming, write to us. We'll respond to your letter and send you information on the council and its codes. A message from the Canadian Association of Broadcasters and Global News Radio 640 Toronto. Don't just know the story, understand it. This is CFMJ Global News Radio 640 Toronto, a Chorus Entertainment Company.
Global News, I'm Safia Parani. Former interim Conservative leader Rona Ambrose says she had no idea it would take so long and require such determination to see new judges be properly trained in sexual assault law. Bill C-3 received royal assent in Parliament Thursday evening. She had first presented the legislation in 2017. It will require new federally appointed judges to train on rape myths and stereotypes and how to make sure biases on race, gender, and other social factors don't influence their decisions. Ambrose says there were certain senators who purposely tried to hold up the bill with the intent of squashing it. Justice Minister David Lametti says the new law will help ensure survivors are treated with respect and dignity. BC's health officials were in the hot seat on Friday following 2 leaked COVID-19 surveillance documents. Global's Daria Zargar has more.
Tough questions after 2 leaked reports from the BC Centre for Disease Control containing detailed data. Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry says this information was already being shared.
Those are working copies, if you will, and the vast majority of what's in those is released in various forms on a weekly basis.
The province's Deputy Health Officer, Dr. Reka Gustafsson, says the data needs to be vetted before it's handed out.
The people who provided the data need to have a look at it and understand it and make sure that it actually reflects the meaning that they're experiencing on the ground.
Health authorities previously cited concerns of privacy and stigmatizing neighborhoods for releasing this information. Daria Zargar, Global News.
Authorities have arrested the owner of a bar in Northern California where fake COVID-19 vaccination cards were being sold for $20 each. Luke Blem of
Vaccination
Joe
cards.
McGivering.
This is the fourth day of heavy fighting in Baghlan. It's mainly focused on 2 districts where the Taliban have reportedly seized government posts. Now, Afghan troops, bolstered by special forces and air support, are on the offensive, trying to regain them. It's one of half a dozen provinces currently reporting violence. This is a period of intense uncertainty for Afghanistan. US-led troops have started to withdraw, raising concerns of a power vacuum and fears the conflict will worsen. On Friday, Taliban representatives held an online meeting with officials from the US, the UN, the EU and several European countries about resuming stalled peace talks.
Demonstrators in Mexico City have held a vigil and a march at the site of the collapse of a subway overpass in which 26 people died and scores more were injured. They're demanding justice for the victims of Monday's disaster. The authorities have promised to hold an investigation. Our correspondent Will Grant is in the Mexican capital.
Protesters carried placards and chanted slogans such as "It wasn't an accident, it was negligence," as they walked along the affected part of the metro system, Line 12. They're furious that as more details emerge, it seems that successive warnings from engineers, drivers and local residents about the poor construction of Line 12 had been ignored. The newest of the city's subway lines, it was unveiled less than a decade ago, but it was closed for more than a year and a half over structural faults on an elevated stretch of the line.
Will Grant in Mexico City. This is the world news from the BBC. European Union leaders have again voiced scepticism about President Biden's plea to waive patents on corona.
Scientists isolated the noise of the whirring blades and magnified it. Ingenuity, the first powered aircraft to fly on another planet, arrived on Mars February 18th. Chuck Severson, ABC News.
At the Global News Desk, I'm Safia Pirani.
That's like a long distance phone call sounds.
God. Oh, crap.
Since that COVAX can buy and gives countries confidence to expedite their own regulatory approval and to import and administer a vaccine.
The inactivated vaccine is produced by a subsidiary of Sinopharm in Beijing. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is calling for win-win cooperation to practice true multilateralism. He has chaired a high-level video conference of the United Nations Security Council. Zheng Yibing has more.
The meeting comes at a time when the world faces daunting challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, food security, climate change, and conflict among countries.
The more daunting the challenges facing all of humanity, the greater the need for solidarity and unity. What is needed is dialogue and cooperation on the basis of equality and mutual respect among all countries.
The United States participated in the meeting, expressing the same wish in solving security problems. Russia's foreign minister said the politics of some Western countries impeded the UN-centered international system. He said all sides should abide by the purposes and principles of the UN Charter.
Rafael Nadal has been knocked out of the Madrid Open quarterfinals in straight sets by German.
That we are.
When you're probably enjoying the afternoon, the last day of your holiday. Yeah. Do something fun.
Back to work for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
Theater out on Sunset. He was lifting the radio out of a 48 convertible. He's had lots of experience.
The report says you picked up a 19-year-old girl with him.
She was waiting for the guy in a parked car across the street from the theater. The car was full of loot.
The first.
Most were wounded in the face and eyes by rubber-coated bullets and shrapnel from stun grenades. That's the news on Wenjin.
You're listening to a flashback.
Really calm and just say, you know what, it's all right. I signed up for this. This is part of the experience. I'm on my way home.
Or maybe you can try to optimize your probability of getting into the fastest line. That was the May 3rd show. That we did.
Hopefully you skip out on the Murphy's Law and get lucky, right?
Yeah, like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and it's usually something bad or...
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Or maybe just be patient because, you know, all that swerving in the traffic is not great either.
No, it's not. You end up leaving a line that's actually going to expedite, and then you end up regretting it. So just stay where you're at and just, mellow out. We got so many distractions with our phone and headphones and, maybe if you're traveling with someone, just, take it easy. You're on vacation. Just put yourself in vacation mode and just realize that waiting is part of the experience.
Yep. And we're not necessarily on vacation.
As its first ever candidate for Chancellor in
September's general election.
After Merkel, what next for Germany?
Learn German
16 years at the helm of Europe's most important country and one of the world's most powerful economies. Angela Merkel's legacy is formidable. But what does it mean for Germany's future, and what direction might her likely successors pursue? There's plenty of food and drink for discussion on the Real Story round table. Our panel are seated around it, ready to get stuck in. Let's meet them. Stefan Cornelius is political editor of the newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung, and he's a biographer of Angela Merkel. Welcome to the Real Story, Stefan Cornelius. What would you point to if you were looking for a high point and a low point of the past 16 years?
I think I would point to that summer of 2015 when Greece almost collapsed and Merkel managed to keep the country in the Eurozone. Just a week later, we had the first boatloads full of refugees arriving in Europe, and tumultuous years of migration engulfed Germany and Europe. So this showed the continuity, the high point and the low point all at once.
Very interesting. So one very intense period of time. Let's meet our next panelist. Michaela Kufner is chief political editor with Germany's Deutsche Welle, an international broadcaster, and host of the podcast Merkel's Last Dance. Welcome to The Real Story, Michaela Kufner. What for you would be a high point and a low point during Chancellor Merkel's time in office?
I think 2015 has to be a high point because she was on the right side of history. At the same time, that was the low point because she failed to translate that into some kind of European formula on how to deal with migration. But the real low point, I think we've seen in the past 12 months, where she seriously damaged her reputation as crisis manager over the pandemic, the slow start of the vaccination campaign, and her inability or unwillingness to really think of new political tools to somehow get ahead of the curve of this historic crisis.
So a more up-to-date, perhaps low, and one that perhaps reflects the end of a long political career. More to talk about there. Let's meet our third panelist. Daniela Schwarzer is Executive Director of Europe and Eurasia at the Open Society Foundation, which is one of the world's biggest funders of civil society groups. Daniela Schwarzer, welcome to The Real Story. What would you point to when you're thinking about success and failure over Angela Merkel's time?
Big future, New York Times bestseller. He's also written for the New York Times and Bloomberg and many other outlets, and I'm very pleased to welcome him to the show. Ashley, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I'm thrilled to have you here because I find Elon Musk to be fascinating, as many people do. And the headlines this week with the all the hype around the Saturday Night Live event coming up this weekend. What do you make of that?
Well, I found
an address.
I told.
Financial topics have gained particular relevance today.
You live with your father and mother, both of them work.
You're a liar. That's not me.
You're 19 years old, you live on the same block as your boyfriend Stanley Freeman, and you're the one who got him mixed up in this gang. Isn't that right?
No, it's not right. It's not. I didn't do anything.
Well, that's only half the story. Freeman told us everything. You want to hear the rest?
No. Stan wouldn't tell you. He wouldn't.
He told us how you got him mixed up in it. Quick money. That's what you told him, didn't you?
No, it was him. I can prove it. The rest of the kids will tell you. He got me in this. Ask them, they'll tell you. It was Stanley and Fred Milford and George Jansen. They started it, all three of them.
All right. Will you tell the story to a police stenographer?
I'll tell him everything. He's not blaming this on me.
Marge, will you go get the stenographer?
Right.
Now, how many persons in this gang of yours?
About 10 or 12. And it's not my gang either. He got me into this, and now he's trying to lie his way out, blaming me.
How long you been doing this, burglarizing cars?
Me? Only about 2 weeks. It was supposed to be fun, something to do at night. The rest of them been at it a couple of months.
Who's the head of the gang?
I told you, it's him, Stanley, and Fred Milford and Jansen, all three. I only started going out with him 2 weeks ago, maybe less.
All right, Joanne. Tell it to the stenographer the same way.
Stenographer will be in a minute, Joe.
Okay, Marge, thanks. Stay with it.
Right, Joe.
70 years ago.
Just about a closed case, Ben. The girl gave us a full confession.
She didn't.
Oh, you're not tricking me again. She didn't. She told us you're one of the leaders of the gang, Stanley. Said you got her into all this. The other two are George Jansen and Fred Milford. About a dozen kids in the gang, all of them about your age. Isn't that right? She's lying, can't you tell? She's lying. She got me into the gang. Well, she did. She's Milford's girlfriend. Ask her. Oh, she can't lie out of that one. She got me into it. I can prove it. Who's the real leader of the gang? Milford. He started it. He organized the whole thing. He collects the stuff we get and he delivers it. Jansen helps him do it. What do you mean he delivers the stuff? Where does he deliver it? Somewhere in Dogtown, I think. Down around South Main near the railroad yards. Who's it delivered to? I don't know exactly. I heard Jansen mention the name once. Myra, he said. It's supposed to be a big secret. Myra, that's all I remember. Where does Jansen and Milford live? Jansen rooms down on East Flower. 1042, I think it's a rooming house. And Milford lives 2 blocks over from me on Quincy. 234 Quincy. He lives with his grandmother. Got that, Ben? Right. All right, let's pick up Milford and Jansen. It was 10 minutes past 1 when Ben and I returned to headquarters with George Jansen and Fred Milford in our custody. In Jansen's room at 1042 East Flower Street, we found 2 fur coats, a box full of new car accessories, an S&W 38 revolver, and a .45 automatic. When we picked up Fred Milford at his home, we discovered 5 deluxe car radios hidden in the garage, plus a valuable assortment of cameras, cigarette lighters, and clothing. Both Jansen and Milford refused to talk, but when we got them to headquarters and showed them the signed statements of Stanley Freeman and the girl, Joanne Miller, they broke. Milford, where else did you and your gang operate besides the Wilshire district? No place, only out there, that's all. Same type of car burglaries have been committed all over the city. You telling us your gang didn't have a hand in them? It's the truth. Our territory was Wilshire district. We didn't go outside. You mean some other gang's responsible? I don't know. All I know is we didn't have any part of them. Is there another gang, Milford? Maybe. I don't know. You find out. It's none of my business. It is your business, Milford. You admit you and your gang committed 55 jobs in the past 3.5 months. That leaves about 200 jobs to be accounted for. That's right. You figure it out. We have figured it out. I think you and your gang of young thieves pulled every one of those 250 jobs. There isn't any other gang. That's the story the district attorney's going to get. You're crazy. There is. I know there is. Then give us the information and save yourself a lot of trouble. Well, we're not the only ones. That's all I know. Milford, do you know how many years you get for auto burglary? I told you, we're not the only ones. There must be a couple of others besides us. Vince Mahoney, he's got a gang. Where does Mahoney operate? West Hollywood and Beverly. Where's he live? I don't know. Honest, I only met him a couple of times. Where'd you meet him? I don't remember. Where'd you meet him, Milford? Delivery. I met him down at the delivery place a couple of nights. When you delivered the property you stole from cars, is that right? Yeah. Where was that? Down by the railroad yards. Where? Chavez Street. It's a little alley off East Main. Where'd you deliver the stuff to? I told you, her name's Myra. That's all I know. We meet her and some guy on Tuesday nights. We give them the stuff and they pay us off. Mahoney delivers the same night I do. Do you meet her every Tuesday night? Yeah. You're going to meet her this Tuesday, tomorrow night? I don't know. I guess so. Same place? Yeah. Are you the only one she deals with? Sometimes Joanne. You're Joanne. I know what you're thinking. You want to use me to trap Myra. Well, what's it worth? You know better than that. How about it, Milford? Oh, what else can I do? Give me another cigarette. By 3:30 that morning, the signed statements and confessions were piling up fast. Milford gave us a list of the names and addresses of each member in his gang, and within an hour, they were all under questioning at headquarters. Most of the suspects, about 1/3 of them girls, ranged in age from 18 to 21. As they told their individual stories, the scope of the case grew until it covered most of the city. By late afternoon of the next day, Tuesday, March 3rd, 3 more gangs operating in Venice, Bel Air, and North Hollywood had been apprehended. They confessed to more than 175 burglaries from locked cars during the past 3.5 months. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, Ben and I met with Chief Backstrand in his office.
How many admissions you have now?
Over 50, Ed. Here are the gang leaders' statements.
What's their story?
That's pretty much the same. They all say this woman Myra set up the operation.
You mean she got the kids and put them to work burglarizing cars?
Well, not exactly. She picked the leaders, contacted them in bars or on the street, asked them if they wanted to pick up some spare money getting auto parts for it.
Then she didn't tell him to go out and burglarize cars.
Well, not in so many words, Ed, no. After they brought in auto parts for a couple of weeks, she told them to bring her everything they could find, outside the car or inside. Those are the words she used.
5 of the kids dictated those words into their signed confession. That should hold in court. What else did you get on this woman?
Oh, she taught them how to work, told them to wear gloves, all the angles.
Well, we got most of the small fry. Now, where do we find this Myra woman? Any description on her?
Yeah. Kids say she's about 33, 34. Good-looking redhead. 5'5", about 120. Well-dressed. No description on the guy she runs with.
You run a make on her yet?
Yeah, no previous record. We set up a stakeout for her tonight. 2 of the gang leaders have volunteered to go along, Miss Milford and Vince Mahoney.
Good. Down on Chavez, where she usually meets them?
Yeah, that's right.
When?
11:15. That's the regular time for the meet, according to the kids.
All right, I'll be at home. Call me. I don't want to miss out on this one.
When Ben and I left Ed Backstrand's office, we went home for dinner and a few hours sleep. At 9:30 p.m., we were back at the office. We met the men in the special detail, which Backstrand had assigned for the stakeout that night. We briefed them on their duties, and then we got Fred Milford and Vince Mahoney out of their cells. To avoid any possible suspicion of the presence of a trap, we had Milford's permission to use his car in the stakeout. The car which he had said he had driven to the delivery meetings with the woman Myra at least a dozen times before. We arrived at the stakeout area, Chavez Alley in East Main, at 9:58. The meeting was scheduled for 11:15. The moon was out, but the sky was overcast. There was a cold wind blowing from the east.
Hey, what time you got, Sergeant?
About 10. Why, Milford? Getting nervous?
No, just wondering.
How you cops gonna rig this thing? In just a couple of minutes, we're going to plant you 2 in Milford's car parked up there in the alley. Now, you stay there until Myra shows up. We'll do the rest.
Yeah, I know, but what'll we say? Suppose she asks for some stuff. We ain't got any.
You won't need any. You won't have much time for talking.
Suppose she wises up. Maybe she'll pull a gun.
Maybe. Does she carry one?
No, never saw her with one.
Don't worry, Milford. We'll make sure you're not in danger.
She's got an awful temper, that redhead. Got mad at me once when I squawked at the prices she was paying us for radios.
What was she paying you, Mahoney?
An A-tube radio, good shape, $7.
She got all the gravy and you got all the grief.
You're not kidding.
Joe, are you?
Yeah, Steve. What do you got?
Well, the men are all staked out, Joe. Got the area covered from every angle.
All right. You got an extra man to stay in Milford's car?
I'll handle that myself.
Fine, thanks.
Okay.
All set, Joe? Yeah. Now, Milford and Mahoney, we're going to put you 2 in your car now. There's going to be an officer with you, so there's no need to be nervous or afraid. You just sit in the car and act natural. When this Myra drives up, don't leave the car. Have her come to you. You got it?
Sure. Okay.
All right, Joe, let's go.
Sure is cold out. I don't even have a heater in my car.
You stole enough of them. Okay, Steve, here they are.
All right, boys. Milford, get in first behind the wheel.
Okay.
Mahoney in the middle. And I'll sit in the back.
We'll be parked in that garage across the street, Steve. Got a perfect view of the alley.
Okay, Ben. Check with you later.
All right. Mean night, Joe. Yeah, come on. It's cold here in the garage, isn't it?
Yeah. And it might be a long wait. What time you got?
6 minutes past 10.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe. What is it?
That's nothing. Thought that passing car was turning in the alley.
Relax. It's early.
Lonely place. Dark. It's on your nerves.
That's it, Ben. 11:30. Nothing yet.
Somebody might have tipped her off.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Now, let's wait it out anyway.
Joe, that blue coupe
just turned in the alley. Let's go. Come on, run, Ben.
Bye. All right, you fella, quit your fighting.
What'd you get, Steve?
Here he is. Just drove up in the coupe. Got out and called Milford Mahoney by the first names. He's in on it. What about the girl? No sign. Kid was the only one in the car.
All right. Tell them in the stakeout's off for tonight. Have them report back in. We'll take the kid with us.
Okay. All right, young fella, this way.
What you cops think you're doing? I ain't done nothing.
Look, sport, we heard that from 54 different kids yesterday. We're tired of that line. Come on.
When we got back to the office, we took the boy to the interrogation room and questioned him. He gave his name as Matthew Leiter, age 21. He wouldn't break until Vince Mahoney definitely identified him as a member of his car burglary gang and the special favorite of the red-headed woman they called Myra. Then Leiter copped out and told Ben and I that he had talked with Myra as late as 10 o'clock tonight. He told us that she had heard that the police had picked up some of the gang members, and she asked Leiter to drive down to the Chavez Alley meeting place. He was supposed to tell Milford and Mahoney that the weekly delivery date was off until further notice. We questioned Matthew Leiter for an hour and a half.
You told us a little while ago that you talked with this woman, Myra, late tonight.
Yeah.
Where'd you talk to her? At her home?
Her home? Don't be stupid. Nobody knows where she lives. I met her at a bar.
Which bar?
Julia's. Out in Santa Monica.
How did she contact you?
Called me at home. She's not such a bad dame. She treats you right.
Sure, that's why you're in jail. Did you ever call her on the phone?
I don't know her number. None of the kids do. She's smart. She taught me all I know about the racket. You'll have a rough time getting her.
Maybe, but we'll get her. Ben and I left the office at 2 a.m. and went home to bed. We reported in at 8 that morning to Ed Backstrand. The three of us went down the street to Koken's restaurant for a cup of coffee. Nobody was in a good mood. We had most or all the small fry in the citywide burglary ring, but it seemed we were still a long way from cracking the inner circle.
The latter kid said that none of them knows where she lives, what her phone number is, nothing. Pass the sugar, Ed. I think we still have a few angles to study on that score. Right now, I've got some more bad news for you.
What's that?
You been through your mail this morning?
No, not yet. We haven't had a chance.
I saw the overnight reports. There were 32 car burglaries last night. 32. All the way from Wilmington to North Hollywood. Now, you figure it. I can't. This girl Myra must have an army of kids working for her.
How much did they get, Ed? Any idea?
Rough estimate about $3,000. Usual stuff people are foolish enough to leave in their cars. Watches, cameras, furs, expensive clothes.
MO's the same?
Yeah, like the others. If the car happens to have a rigid handle lock, they slip a piece of pipe over the handle for a lever and break it. If that doesn't work, they pry open the wing window. Some of the windows were smashed out.
Sounds like you're in an awful hurry, Joe. Yeah, maybe this Mara wants a few big nights before she peddles the stuff and gets out.
If we're going to get her, we can't waste time.
Any suspects picked up last night, Skipper?
None.
Well, where did they hit most of the cars?
Outside the Pan Pacific. The parking lot. Hockey game going on. Must have been 4,000 cars for them to pick over. They picked the best.
As usual.
Well, you better get on it. There's one way to handle it.
What's that?
She works fast. You work a little faster.
We got back to the office and we went over the reports one by one. Then we called the young gang members to the interrogation room and questioned them separately and re-questioned them. We got nowhere. Many of them had met Myra on the street, in a bar, but not one of them had any idea where she lived. At least that's what they told us. Ben had a hunch that Matthew Leiter knew more than he was telling. We had him brought to the interrogation room, and all that afternoon until 10 o'clock that night, with interruptions for his meal periods, we talked with Leiter. He would admit nothing more than what he'd already told us.
Yeah, it's got me beat, Joe.
Yeah. Now let's check with Ed.
Good morning, Joe. Ben? Hi, Mike. Skipper in? Just went down the hall for a minute. Be right back. Hold it a minute, will you?
Yeah.
Chief of Detectives always handing. Yeah. For you, Joe.
Oh, thanks. Hello? Yeah. He does? We'll be right over. That was Sergeant Hopkins over at the jail.
Yeah?
Matthew Leiter's got something to tell us. Says it's important.
Have a chair here, Leiter.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. You wanted to see us.
I'm getting even with that dame Myra. I'm squaring with you.
Yeah?
She told me if I was picked up, she'd have me out in a couple of hours. She promised me a lawyer if anything happened. Said she'd get me bail.
All right, where can we find her?
I don't know if she's there now, but you can find out at Francisco Motors. Big used car lot. Garage, too. It's out on Melrose past La Cienega.
What's the tie-up?
That's where she fenced most of the stuff we stole. Some old guy she buddies with runs the place. Big shop in the back. Store a lot of hot stuff there.
Barney.
Yes,
We're through with them. Take them back. We checked with Chief Backstrand, and then we drove out to the Francisco Motor Company. We located it on the corner of Melrose and Geneva Avenue. It was a big layout. It consisted of a large used car lot sign bannering the slogan, Deluxe Auto Accessories, lowest prices in town. Along the back end of the lot, there was a large L-shaped garage. We found the man in charge, and he gave his name as Paul Hackett, the owner of the car lot. In the garage, we found the entrance to a large back storeroom. It was loaded with thousands of dollars worth of auto radios, spotlights, cratefuls of assorted car accessories. Special closets built into the walls of the garage contained racks of fur coats, suits, dresses. Below that, smaller boxes containing watches and cameras, all wrapped in tissue paper.
You can save all of us a lot of time and trouble by talking to us now, Mr. Hackett. Where is Myra?
I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Can you explain what we just found in your garage?
I didn't know it was there. I didn't know it was stolen.
Well, which is it, Mr. Hackett? Make up your mind.
I bought it, but I didn't know it was stolen. You can't prove I did know.
I think we can prove it, Mr. Hackett. Some of those stolen car radios stored back there, the serial numbers are filed off, and this workbench here is full of filings.
I didn't know.
You'll have to do better than that. How does Myra figure in?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's all right with us, Hackett. We found the stuff and we got you. If we don't find Myra, you'll be doing time for two people. Stand still.
You can't. You can't do this to me. I don't know anything about it.
Come on, Hackett. We're taking you in. All right, get in the car. Come on, in the car.
Am I going to jail?
You're going to jail.
All right. I'll take you to Myra.
Hackett told us that Myra lived at 1345 Munich Drive in Beverly Hills. He said that he was Myra's husband. He told us that he'd been in a legitimate garage business for 10 years before he married Myra. She talked him into the racket. He identified 1345 Munich Drive as their home. When we got there, we found stores of stolen property similar to those found in the garage. Myra was not there. Hackett had no idea where she might be. We sat down in the living room and waited. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. After 5 hours of waiting, the monotony started to wear on everybody's nerves, especially Hackett's.
The whole thing, it was her idea. I should have known, all hers. She did this to me. I won't take her alone. Where is she?
You tell us, Hackett.
Told you, I don't know. She couldn't have gone. She didn't know. I'm not going to take this alone.
Quiet down.
That you, Paul? Thought I heard you talking to some. Who's he?
The police, Myra. The police. Your smart kids told them the whole story.
What are you talking about, my smart kids? What are these cops
All
doing
right,
here? In the...
that's enough.
Oh, get your dirty hands off me. Get away.
Kids are right, Joe. She got to
Get
do
away.
it.
Who do you think you're...
There, that ought to hold you for a while. All right, come on, you two. Let's go.
All right, copper. You win. Stupid husband. How many times did I tell you? Don't trust those kids. Don't store their stuff in the garage. Don't open it for anybody. Get a lawyer. No, you knew better. Dumb jerk. The idea of having those cops camping in the living room waiting for me. Why didn't you warn me? I'm going to divorce you. That's what I'm going to do. I'll stick you for plenty. Jerk.
All right, inside you two.
You got a smoke, Ben?
Yeah. Right here.
Thanks. I'm just thinking.
What?
Those kids were right. She's a pretty nice looking woman.
Yeah. Nice face. Beautiful figure.
Mm-hmm. Sure talks a lot, though, doesn't she?
Yeah. Hey, Joe, remind me to take home some flowers to my wife tonight, will you?
The story you have just heard is true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
Paul and Myra Hackett were tried and convicted on 7 separate counts of receiving stolen property. They are now serving out their sentences in the state penitentiary. Realizing that most of the young persons involved in the case were influenced by the strong personality of Paul and Myra Hackett, a separate investigation was made into the backgrounds and home life of the young offenders. In most cases, they were found to be basically good, and they were placed on probation and returned to their homes. You have just heard the 13th in a new series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice for Dragnet comes from the office of W.A. Wharton, Acting Chief of Police, Los Angeles Police Department.
Tonight's program is dedicated to Detective Harry William Vosper of the Seattle, Washington Police Department, who on the night of July 21st, 1949, gave his life so that yours might be more secure.
Dragnet came to you from Los Angeles. And now, an important announcement. Starting this Saturday, September 3rd, Dragnet will be heard at a new time over your NBC station. Consult your local newspaper for the new listening time. And now, speaking in behalf of the producers and the entire cast of Dragnet, we would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your many kind letters of encouragement and approval. Remember, next Saturday for Dragnet, this is NBC, the national broadcasting company.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Roma Wine presents Suspense. Roma Wine, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Salud. Your health, senor. Roma Wines toast the world. The wine for your table is Roma Wine, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is the Man in Black, here to introduce this weekly half hour of suspense. Tonight from Hollywood, we bring you as star, Mr. Alan Ladd. In the character Mr. Ladd assumes with us tonight, he reveals the thoughts, and through them, the dramatic story of a young man on trial for the crime of murder. But before we take you to the scene of our drama, let's imagine ourselves for a moment in flower-garlanded Bermuda.
We are seated on the terrace of the exclusive Coral Beach and Tennis Club. At the next table, a party of Bermudians and Americans are taking turns, each paying compliments to the delights of the other's native land. An American has just praised the famed Easter lilies of Bermuda. Then a Bermudian tops him with something like this. Among great American delights, he says, one of my favorites is right here on our table. It's this splendid wine we're all enjoying. Bermuda imports it from the justly renowned wine districts of California. It is your internationally esteemed Roma wine. Yes, and Americans themselves have certainly not overlooked the great and enjoyable qualities of these fine Roma wines. Proof is, Roma wines are America's largest selling wines. Such outstanding popularity must mean here are wines that are more taste-delighting, more satisfying in their richness and fine wine quality. Yet with all that as your reward for specifying Roma wines, you will be amazed and delighted to hear your dealer say, Roma wines cost only pennies a glass. That's because here in America, you pay no high import duty or long voyage shipping charges for these fine Roma California wines. So why put off this taste treat another day? Be sure to ask for R-O-M-A, Roma wines, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
And now with the defense rests, and with the performance of our star, Alan Ladd, as defendant Robert Tasker, supported by John McIntyre as the noted criminal lawyer Max Krager, we again hope to keep you in suspense.
The People versus Robert Tasker. The defendant charged on the indictment with murder in the first degree.
Is counsel for the defense prepared to proceed?
I am, Your Honor.
Very well, Mr. Krager. Your Honor, if the court please, I think it is fitting that for a moment I should speak of a matter which has, albeit indirectly, nonetheless a substantial bearing on this case. I refer, of course, to the rather unique relationship existing between myself and the defendant, Robert Tasker. It's true that my interest in him and in his fate is far greater than the normal interest of a lawyer and his client. It's true that that interest might be reasonably described, as it has been so many times, as fatherly. And yet I ask Your Honor and the gentlemen of the jury to think of me in all fairness and without bias, simply as a lawyer defending his client. It needs no expatiation on legal or practical ethics to demonstrate that if I did not believe with my whole heart, mind, being,
My name is Robert Tasker. I am sitting in a courtroom on trial for murder. As Mr. Krager, my lawyer, stands there now, telling the judge and the jury about me and about him, I can't help thinking that if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here today. And thinking what irony it is, too. Because Mr. Krager is the only friend I've ever had in the world. I am an ex-con. My sentence was for 10 years. After I'd been there about a year, I began to write just short stories, little things. I had lots of time. Finally, I sent one to a magazine, and they published it. Mr. Krager happened to read it. He wrote to me. Then he came to see me. He remembered my case. He said he'd try to help me. Then one day, I was called to the warden's office.
Hello, Robert.
Hello, Mr. Krager.
Robert, I've got some good news for you. I've got your parole. You're free. Well, you happy?
Sure, it's just that I still don't quite believe it.
It's official, Tasker. Here are your papers.
Papers. That'll make everything easy, won't it? Passport to a brilliant future. Ex-con.
Robert, I know it's going to be a little hard to adjust at first, but there's a job in my office that I...
Thanks, Mr. Krager, but I don't want charity even from you.
It isn't charity, Robert. I need a clerk in my office or I wouldn't have offered you the job. You don't have to stay if you don't want to, but you'll be doing me a favor if you try it.
Well, I guess I owe you at least one favor.
Yeah, Tasker. Goodbye and good luck. Just remember that what's happened up here is water over the dam. Don't hold any grudges.
I don't hold any grudges. There's one man I hate, that's all.
A man you hate, Rob?
What's the use of kidding about it? His name is Arthur Hines, and I hate him. Simple as that.
Well, forget it, son. Hines was DA then. He was just doing a job, that's all. He had nothing against you.
He was doing a job, all right.
Robert, you mustn't feel that way. You get along with Hines, all right?
Get along with him?
In the office. Oh, didn't I tell you? Arthur Hines is my new partner.
Well, it certainly threw me for a second to hear I was going to be working side by side with that. Well, I figured they were right, and I shouldn't hold grudges, and I made up my mind to play ball. The work wasn't hard, and I was able to do some writing on the side. Mr. Krager always encouraged me in that. And Peggy helped me a lot, too. She helped me to believe in myself. All that time, I never saw Mr. Hines. He was out of town or something. And then one day he came back. I was nervous at the idea of seeing him, but I thought I was all over my resentment then. He was in his office with someone. He had come in the private entrance. I was on the anteroom with Peggy by the switchboard when I heard the commotion.
Don't touch that English language, no. You're a liar. I don't get out of here. Get out.
Don't give me that, Hines. You've either got it or you know who has.
I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know. Don't you think I got enough trouble nowadays keeping mugs like you out of the pen without being defended for what you stole? Now you get out of my office and stay out.
Okay, but I'll be back. $50,000 is a lot of money.
Huh. What do you want?
Why?
Robert works here, Mr. Hines.
My name's Robert Tasker. Did Mr. Krager tell you about me?
I knew I'd seen you before. You're that punk kid I sent up to San Quentin.
What's the 10 years? What do you mean you're working here?
Well, Mr. Krieger got me out. He gave me a job.
Job of what? Snooping outside my office?
Oh, I wasn't.
Don't talk back to me, you dirty little jail rat.
Why, you...
Robert, don't.
Let me go.
Well, what's the trouble here? Robert,
Let me go.
stop it. Calm down, calm down. What's the matter?
What's the idea of bringing this kid into the office, Max? Isn't it bad enough to have to work with criminals all day without...
Robert's not a criminal. He's here because I want him to be here. Because I believe in him and trust him.
Oh, yeah?
You don't still have anything against Robert, do you?
I just don't like anybody hanging around outside my door when I'm having a private conference, that's all.
All right. Now, look. Robert Tasker is one of the finest, most gifted young people I've ever known. I want him to get along here. And I want him to get along with you, too, Arthur. See?
Me, I can get along with anybody. Well, I gotta be in court.
Wait a minute. Now, shake hands, both of you, will you?
Well, anything to keep peace in the family.
That's fine. Everything forgotten. Start off on a clean slate, right?
Sure. Well, I'll see you later in the afternoon, Max.
Oh, Robert, come into my office for a minute, will you?
Sure.
My boy, I'm terribly sorry. I don't know how to begin to apologize.
Why should you apologize?
Oh, it was all my fault. I don't know how I could have been stupid enough not to tell him beforehand, for both your sakes.
I know. I just don't like him, and he doesn't like me.
No, Robert, you're wrong there. It's just the things been happening lately to upset him, like this fellow Marvin and his $50,000.
You know about that?
Well, Robert, you know we have to deal with some peculiar people in this business. There's a poor fellow who's been in prison himself for the last 5 years. He had quite a lot of money when he went in. Always stole it, I guess.
Oh, he thinks Hines hijacked it on him, huh?
If he ever really had it. He says he left it with a pal of his. Later, the pal was killed in a gunfight. Gallucci, you remember the case?
Yeah, I remember something about it.
Anyway, just before he died, he told somebody he'd left the money with Hines. That's how the story goes. But you know how these things travel on the grapevine. It's all nonsense, of course.
That guy meant business just the same.
And it probably explains the whole thing. Hines is a little scared. But don't let it worry you, Robert. You will stay, won't you? Believe me, it's for the best.
Well, I've got to trust somebody, I guess.
Well, trust me, Robert. I've never given you a bum steer, have I?
No. Okay.
That's the spirit. And any other little troubles, you just bring them to me, see?
Thanks. Well, I guess I better relieve Peggy on the board.
Keep your chin up, kid.
Sure. Sorry I kept you waiting, Peggy.
That's all right.
Hey, Peggy, what's the matter? Shh.
Please, don't say anything.
But Peggy, what is it?
Robert, I'm scared.
Of what, Hines? Don't be silly.
No, it's not him.
Well, what is it?
Robert, I shouldn't, but I've got to tell someone.
Well, sure you have. Come on, take it easy now. What is it?
Well, I've never told anyone before. Neither Mr. Hines nor Mr. Krieger know. I'd die if they did. You wouldn't tell anyone, would you?
Of course I won't. Come on, spell it.
You saw that man who was in here, was arguing with Mr. Hines about the $50,000.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. There is $50,000 somewhere.
Yeah? Well, how do you know all this?
I know, and I'm scared. Robert, he's a killer.
That guy? Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but how do you know?
Because he's my own brother.
I had a hunch slam out of there right then. I knew something was going to happen. But I hated to run out on Peggy when she was in jam and might need help. And I didn't want to let Mr. Krieger down either. So I stayed. And one day, about 2 weeks later, it came. I hadn't had any more trouble with Hines. He was out of town most of the time anyway. He was still out of town that day. The day that he died.
Krieger and Hines. I'm sorry he's out of town. You might try later this afternoon. Yes, I'll tell Mr. Hines.
Say, Peggy.
Uh-huh.
Do you know when Mr. Krieger will be in?
No, he didn't say. He's still over in the court on... Harry.
Where is he?
Who?
You know who, Hines.
Oh, Harry, I told you not to come. I begged you not to.
Sure. Always a little pal. Always a little... Hey, wait a minute. What does this guy know?
I told him that you were my brother. But nobody else knows that.
Yeah, sure. Okay. What do I care? I only care about one thing.
Harry, you promised you wouldn't come up here.
Where's Hines?
I don't know. He's out.
Well, then I'll wait till he comes back.
Harry, you must...
I'm staying. I'll get it out of him.
Harry, your sister said you should leave.
Keep out of this, punk.
I don't like that word, pal.
Robert, listen. Will you watch the board for a few minutes?
Sure. It's lunchtime anyway.
Harry, I've got some things I want to talk over with you, privately.
Yeah? What things?
About Hines and, you know. Come on, we'll go downstairs to the grill in the lobby.
You wouldn't be trying to ease me out of here, would you?
No, honest, I've got to talk to you, Harry. Come on.
Okay, and listen, pal.
Yeah?
If Mr. Hines comes in, you tell him I was here. And tell him he better come across or else.
Is that all?
That's enough, isn't it? He'll know what I mean. Plenty.
Sure. Krager Hines.
Hello, Robert. This is Max Krager.
Oh, yes, Mr. Krager.
You there all alone? Peggy out to lunch, huh?
Yes, she is.
Well, that can't be helped. I'm in a hurry now. I'll tell you what I want you to do.
Yes, sir.
I'm across the street in the courthouse, Judge Andrews' court, the Ellsworth case. Now, there's some notes I've got to have over here right away. They're in my own handwriting in pencil and clearly marked Ellsworth.
Yes, sir.
You'll find them in Mr. Hines' office. The pages are all clipped together. I don't know exactly where in his office. It may be on his desk, or maybe one of the drawers, or in the files, or under the blotter. But keep looking, you see? Keep looking until you find it.
All right, sir.
Then bring it over to me right away. Got it?
Yes, sir.
I'll be waiting for you.
I left the switchboard and went into Mr. Hines' office. I started looking around for the notes. I looked everywhere. The desk drawers, the filing cabinet. I even tried to look in the safe, but it was locked. Then I noticed some yellow papers on top of the bookcase. I reached up and took them down. I was standing there with my back to the private entrance, looking the papers over to be sure that they were right ones when...
What are you doing in here?
Mr. Krager wanted some papers, Mr. Hines.
I thought I told you to stay away from my office. What are you snooping around in here for?
Well, Mr. Krager told me to look in here for...
Yeah? There's something mighty funny going on around this office.
There's nothing funny, Mr. Krager just...
I say there is. What's that switchboard girl doing sneaking around the lobby with Harry Marvin? Tried to duck me, but I saw him. First the switchboard girl turns out to have a crazy ex-convict for a boyfriend, and
That's
now...
a lie. He's her brother.
A brother? Oh, so that's it.
I shouldn't have said that, Mr. Hines. I don't know anything about it.
You don't, Well, I do. I get it now. I knew there was something. All of a sudden, I get it.
Mr. Hines, there's nothing to get.
Yeah, so the girl and her brother go down to the lobby and set themselves an alibi because they know I'll suspect them. And then they get you to do that dirty work for a nice fat cut, I suppose. That's what you think.
Please, Mr. Hines, don't talk that way.
Well, you didn't find it, did you? And you won't. Now get out of here, you little punk, before
I said don't talk that way.
Why, you dirty, thieving little stirrer.
I told you not to talk that way. He fell and just lay there. For a minute, I didn't know what to do. And I knew I'd have to tell Mr. Krager. I knew I was all washed up there anyway. I couldn't very well expect even a man like Mr. Krager to choose between his law partner and me. And I couldn't stay in the same office with Mr. Hines after what had happened. But somehow I wanted to tell Mr. Krager myself before anyone else did. I went out to the switchboard and dialed the courthouse number.
Judge Andrews' court, Johnson speaking.
I want to speak to Mr. Max Krager. This is office calling, please.
Well, I don't see him around here right now. The court's in recess.
I know, but try to locate him, will you? It's important.
Okay, hold the line.
I sat there waiting for them to find Mr. Krager. And all of a sudden, I remembered the papers he wanted. I cut off the call on the switchboard. I had to take the papers over to him anyway, and I thought I might as well go over and give him the papers and tell him what had happened. And get it over with. I was starting for the front door of the office. Then I heard a sound from Mr. Hines' office behind me. At first, I thought he was just coming to, and I kept going. Then something sort of clicked in my mind, and I stopped. The sound hadn't seemed quite right for a man just coming to. I listened, but I didn't hear anything more. And that didn't seem quite natural either. I went back and opened the door to Mr. Hines' office. He was lying there just as I'd left him, and yet there was something different. I went over and looked at him more closely. His face was a terrible gray. I touched his wrist, feeling for his pulse. The next thing I knew, I was down on my knees, tearing open his collar, but even then I knew it wasn't any use. Mr. Hines was dead. I don't know how long I stood there in the room. It might have been hours, it might have been only a couple of minutes. I I just stood there, my mind dazed, and yet at the same time racing through 1,000 half-formed plots and schemes of escape, of what I could say, of some way out of it. The switchboard began to buzz with an incoming call. It sort of brought me to my senses more out of habit than anything else. I went to answer it. Krager and Hines.
Robert, you still there?
Mr. Krager,
What are those notes? Have you found them yet?
Yes, I found them all right.
Well, bring them over here. I need them right away.
Mr. Krager,
Robert, what's the matter with you?
I just killed Mr. Hines.
You're just making it hard for yourself, Tasker.
I told you what happened.
In a pig's eye you have.
Well, I don't have to talk if I don't want to.
Oh, no?
I'm waiting for Mr. Krager. I told you that.
Krager, what do you think he's going to do for you?
I don't know.
Well, I do. He's going to see that you burn. That's what he's going to do for you.
Maybe.
What do you expect? You kill a man's law partner right in his own office. You think he's going to help you? You're crazy?
Well, he told him he'd come down.
Sure, of course he'll come down to give evidence against you. Now listen, Tasker. You give a full confession, we may be able to get you a break.
All right. Mr. Krager's outside, Captain. He wants to see you.
Sure, send him in.
Okay, Mr. Krager.
Thank you.
Hi, boys. Hey, Mr. Krager. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Mr. Krager.
Been treating you all right?
Pretty good.
Fine. I don't like to have my people treated roughly. You know what? You heard me, Captain, and while you're at it, you might as well take those handcuffs off of him. Because from this moment, he's out on bond, released in my custody. I've got the papers right here.
Say, are you crazy?
Certainly not. I simply don't believe the boy did it, that's all.
Well, I'll be... All right, Hawkshaw. Who do you think did it?
That, Captain, is your department. My job is simply to defend an innocent man.
Now, look, Krager, don't try to kid us. It's an open and shut case. Tasker's the only person who had the opportunity. The only one who had a motive.
Uh-huh. Well, not to speak ill of the deed, Captain, and although Arthur Hines was my law partner, it is unfortunately true that quite a number of people at least thought they had a motive.
Sure. So maybe this ex-con Harry Marvin had a motive, or even the dame on the switchboard had a motive, for all I know. But they couldn't have done it. 50 people saw them together downstairs in the lobby of the building at the time the murder was committed.
Oh, you talked to him, that is?
Sure. So what? Listen, this kid admits he had a quarrel with Hines. He always hated him anyway. He admits he hit him. So he picks the paperweight off the desk and smashes him over the head.
Wait a minute. You didn't say anything about that, Robert?
No, I didn't even know about it before. I didn't hit him with a paperweight.
Stop it, will you? The back of the man's head is bashed in with that paperweight. This kid's fingerprints are all over it. What's so funny? This is murder, mister.
I'm sorry, but you'll find out if you ever try to bring this boy to trial for killing Arthur Hines with a paper.
Listen, Krager, I know you're pretty smart. I know you go around bragging you never lost a case.
And that goes for this one. Double.
But you're not going to make a chump out of me. This boy's going to be indicted for murder. He's going to be convicted of murder. And he's going to burn for murder.
Indicted, convicted, burned. 3 promises. And the first one's already happened. The second one, well, even I can see we don't stand much chance. And the third one, well, I just try not to think about it. There's Mr. Krager up before that jury, acting as though it was an absolute certainty that I'd be cleared, pleading for me as though I were the only guy in the world. Because, well, that's the kind of a man he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my firm conviction that when you've heard this boy's story from his own lips, and when through it you have in some measure, as I have in large measure, gained insight into the depth and integrity of his character and spirit, you will also believe him innocent. He is innocent. Now, Robert, I'll ask you to take the stand.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Now, Robert, just for the record, will you tell the court your full name?
Robert Loring Tasker.
Your age?
24.
Your mother and father are dead. You have no living relatives?
No, not one.
Now, before you begin your story, there are 1 or 2 extremely important points that I particularly wish to emphasize to the court. Now, tell me, Robert, how long was it between the time you quarreled with Mr. Hines and the time you went back into his office and found him dead?
Not long. 6 or 7 minutes, perhaps.
But it was long enough for someone to have entered Mr. Hines' office by the back entrance, struck him, and left again, was it not?
Yes, it was long enough for that to have happened.
Would you have necessarily heard such a person enter the office?
No, you can't hear much from outside when the door's closed.
Particularly if there were no conversation, because Mr. Hines is already unconscious. Is that correct?
Yes, then I wouldn't have heard anything.
Now, concerning this famous paperweight the prosecution has talked so much about, I have it here. Do you recognize it?
Yes, it was always on Mr. Hines' desk.
Now, when you went into his office at my order to look for certain papers, you touched this paperweight, did you not?
Yes, I touched just about everything on the desk.
Exactly. In other words, your fingerprints would be found not only on this paperweight, but on practically everything else in the room.
Oh, yes, they would.
In due course, Your Honor, we shall demonstrate that such is, in fact, precisely the case. Now, Robert, when Mr. Hines found you in his room, he was irate and highly suspicious, was he not?
Yes, he was.
In fact, he even suspected that there was some plot against him involving Peggy, the switchboard girl, and the client of his named Harry Marvin.
Yes, he did.
You denied this, saying that, in fact, they were brother and sister?
Yes. Yes, that's right. How is that again?
You denied the charge of a plot, saying that Peggy and Harry Marvin were brother and sister. Then Mr. Hines went so far as to accuse you of stealing...
Your Honor.
Yes?
Your Honor, there's something I've just thought of. Some new evidence. I'd like a few minutes alone with my lawyer, please.
Well, your counsel has no objection. Robert, what is it?
It's just something that I think I ought to tell you in private.
Very well. If Your Honor please, then. By all means. Perhaps you would like to use my chambers. Thank you, Your Honor. Come along, Robert. Well, you didn't have to lock the door, Robert.
I wanted to be private.
All right. But, Robert, you mustn't worry like this. Let me do the worrying. They can't convict you if there's a reasonable doubt. That's the law, and there is a reasonable doubt. Somebody did come in and hit Hines in those 6 or 7 minutes. It must have been that way.
Yeah, I know.
Of course you do. We've been over the whole thing. Now let's go back into that courtroom.
Mr. Krager, there's something I haven't told you.
Something you haven't told me? What?
Well, it's a little thing, but it's kind of important because it's something I never told anyone.
Well, what is it?
I never told anyone that Peggy was Harry Marvin's sister, except Mr. Hines, by mistake. And he's dead.
Well, now, Robert, don't you think that's a little trivial to be...
No, because you know about it. You just said so in the courtroom.
Well,
there's only one way you could have found out. You must have been in your office when I had the fight with Hines and heard me tell him.
Robert, that's ridiculous.
Oh, no, it isn't right. Somebody did come in those 6 or 7 minutes and kill Hines. You did.
You're crazy.
It's been for that $50,000 you hijacked the hijacker. And you knew they'd met on me with my record. Maybe that's why you got me out of the pen in the first place. It is, isn't it?
Well, I'm not going to stay here and listen to any such nonsense.
Oh, yes, you are, because I'm going to get the truth out of you right now. You planned it that way, didn't you? You sent me into Hines' office that day, and you probably sent him. And you figured you were such a hot lawyer that might even get me off at 20 years or so. To ease your dirty conscience, didn't you? Talk, Krager.
You won't get anywhere using violence with me.
No? Talk!
Now, wait a minute. Even if I did confess, it wouldn't hold up as evidence.
Talk!
Listen! Don't! Listen, we'll postpone the trial. I can get you out of the country. I'll give you money.
That's all I wanted to know. Talk!
Now, don't go!
That's where you were when I phoned you as caught. They couldn't find you, weren't you? You were killing Hines, weren't you?
No! Yes, I did. I killed him.
Okay. I guess we can unlock the door now.
What's going on? He had to grab him. He's crazy. He attacked me. So I gather. He even accused me of murder. Yes, I heard him. Tell me, Krager, where were you when this boy phoned you here at court? When they couldn't find you? Yeah, why? As a matter of fact, I was right here, right in this very room. I had some work to do. I wanted privacy. Your court was in recess. You were out of town. Yes, I know. But there's something you don't know. Hey, what? On the day of the murder, the floor of this room was being repainted. And the paint, Mr. Krager, was quite wet.
Your Honor, the defense rests.
And so closes The Defense Rest, starring Alan Ladd. Tonight's tale of suspense. Alan Ladd appeared through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures, producers of Lady in the Dark. John McIntyre played lawyer Max Krager. Before Mr. Ladd returns to our microphone, here is a definition of yourself that may interest you.
Connoisseur, one competent to act as a critical judge of an art or in a matter of taste. That's what Webster says. So that makes you a wine connoisseur, because certainly you are competent to act as a critical judge of a wine's taste. Matter of fact, all you have to know to be a true wine connoisseur in the opinion of your friends and guests is a single word: Roma. R-O-M-A. To get the proof, make your own taste test of the tangy, appetizing Roma Sherry, the hearty, satisfying Roma Burgundy, the heavier, sweeter Roma Port, or any of the many different, delicious Roma California wines. If your favorite dealer is temporarily out of the kind of Roma wine you prefer, ask for it again, please. Just be sure to say R-O-M-A, Roma Wines, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Alan Ladd. It was a pleasure to make another appearance on this program, which is a great favorite of mine. Next week, they tell me Laird Krieger will be your star, and I know you'll want to be listening, because I certainly will. Good night.
Suspense is produced and directed by William Spear. Tonight's play was written by Roland Brown and Robert L. Richards. Don't forget then, next Thursday for Laird Krieger in Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wine. R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Mrs. Perkins won the prize, but I got in the biggest pickle at the county fair. This is another in the adventures of America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar. At insurance investigation, Johnny Dollar is only an expert. At making out his expense account, he is an absolute genius. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar. To Home Office, Corinthian Liability and Bonding Company, Terminal Building, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of my expenditures during my assignment as bodyguard to Grand Blue Ribbon Champion, Spotted Poland China Hog, Rosie Barron of Iowa. Or How You Cast My Pearls of Wisdom Before Swine. Or Out of the Fire into the Frying Pan. Expense account item 1. $76.80. Train and bus fare, Hartford, to the town of Carver, county seat of Carver County, Iowa. Expense account item 2, $2.50. 1 Coke, 3 handkerchiefs, a bottle of salt, tablets, and sunglasses, with which to combat the Corn Belt heat. Item 3, 6 bits. Jitney ride to the Carver County Fairgrounds. Undoubtedly named that because the band I found in the midst of playing its afternoon concert was only fair. Hey, friend. How's that? I'm looking for a pig named Rosie Barron of Iowa. Tell me where I'll find his cage. Cage? They don't keep all in no cage. Wrong? Who's he? Well, that's George for Rosie Barron of Iowa. Oh, yeah. Any fool would know that. Uh-huh. Can you tell me where he is? See that building over there, the livestock building? Yeah. You'll find Lala in the swine wing. Swine wing? Uh-huh. Well, that conjures up a dainty picture. A flying pig. Afraid Lala won't ever do much flying. Weighs 980. Oh, well, thanks a lot. Oh, neighbor. Yeah? Why don't you try slipping out of that there coat? You won't find it near as sweaty. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Hiram. Well, he didn't even wait to be my best friend. Hey! Wait, I'll come with you, neighbor. It was 96 in the shade, but things are getting hotter. The livestock building will be bringing them along. But Hiram on my heels. What do you pulled that one? First, I ran into a stranger just outside the entrance. Get out of the way, let me out of here. Then I ran through the door.
Somebody do something. Don't just stand there. Where's the sheriff?
Hey, Hiram, what happened?
Well, didn't you see? Didn't you hear? That woman's Mrs. Stewart. Somebody must have stole her diamond brooch.
Oh, good. I was afraid somebody might have put the scratch on Rollo.
Her husband owns Rollo. They must have been taking pictures of Mrs. Stewart in the middle of a crowd. And when they had her smiling real pretty, them flash bulbs went off, and then somebody must have reached around behind her and yanked the brooch and started shooting a gun in there.
That's a tried and true method of busting up a crowd to help make a getaway. Think anybody saw it, did it?
Couldn't. And those flashes would have had him blind as bats for a minute. There's the sheriff.
What's his name?
That's Harry Brewer.
Harry Brewer?
Yeah.
Sounds like a slogan from the Republican campaign.
Hey, here, you.
Wait a minute, let's go. Whenever you're trying to get my coat off. Come on, Sheriff. Lose the habit of that.
All right, now, never mind the fancy talk, young fella. I saw something pass between you and one of the thieves just outside the door.
Oh, you're out of your mind. That guy bumped into me. He came crashing out of here, and I happened to be in the way.
I'll bet you happened to be in the way. Accidentally on purpose.
Now, that's an early American comeback. But that's the way it was. Now, look, I won't ask you for a search warrant, Sheriff. You think I got the brooch on me? Start looking.
All right, I will.
All right. Yeah, now, in that pocket, cigarettes and a lighter.
I see 'em.
You see? Yeah. And in that pocket, handkerchiefs and salt tablets.
Salt tablets?
Mm-hmm. Now, why don't you look in my inside coat pocket? And there you'll find my wallet and identification.
I was coming to that. Well,
Dollar.
Insurance investigator. Hartford, Connecticut. Well, what brought you out here?
I'm a piggy sitter for the Corinthian Liability and Bonding Company. They wrote a policy for $25,000 on your friend Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Who ever heard of taking out a $25,000 insurance policy on a hog?
I did. And right now I wish I hadn't. Some people pay high premiums for publicity, Sheriff. And that's what the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company is doing in this case. Now, may I have my wallet back? I want to count my money.
Yes, it's not here.
All right. Here is your wallet.
You may think you're quite the joker, young fella, but I'm telling you right now, I'm going to keep an eye on you.
I got a better idea than that, Harry. If I were you, I'd go looking for that photographer.
Why? What'd he do?
He took the picture. And there's just a chance the thief may be in it.
Fred, that gives me an idea.
Sheriff, whoever says you aren't smart makes no mistake. Rollo, the prize porker, wasn't hard to find. First, I followed a few signs. Then it was a matter of closing in on a contented series of juicy, slurping grunts that came blurping up out of a succulent mound of Louisiana yams. Rollo was all fat and a yard wide, but his table manners weren't much. He didn't look very smart, but he sure looked healthy. 980 pounds, well, a fine figure of a pig. Pardon me, miss. Could you tell me who's in charge around here?
Well, just for the moment, I am.
Well, I'm trying to find a Mr. Worthington Tiller, who I take it owns this monster.
Monster? What?
What's the matter? Have I said something wrong?
You certainly have. And you've also said it to the wrong person. In case you don't know it, my name is Alva Anderson.
Oh, my name is Johnny Dollar. How do you do? What's all this got to do with Rollo?
Nothing. I just raised Rosie Barron of Iowa from a SICKLY, that's all.
Trying to get away from you, didn't it? I'm sorry, Miss Anderson. I apologize. It's to you too, Rollo. Sorry about the interruption, Miss Anderson. Some fool made off with my wife's diamond brooch. How is this excitement affecting Rollo? I hope he hasn't lost any weight.
You took it very well, Mr. Taylor.
Oh, good.
This gentleman wants to see you, Mr. Dollar.
From the insurance company. Good. Well, I'm glad you're here. We'll have your picture taken right away with my wife and Rollo. Oh, it'll make grand publicity for Blue Ribbon Prime Packers. Oh, I don't mind having my picture taken. Just so long as your wife doesn't mind having people pinch your diamond brooches. Oh, well, then don't worry about that. It was fully insured. Oh, that kind. The thing I want you to worry about is Rollo here. As president of Blue Ribbon, I paid Miss Anderson $10,000 for this magnificent swine, and I don't want anything to happen to it.
You bought him for $10,000, insured him for $25,000, and you don't want anything to happen to him?
Yeah, well, I don't mind paying those exorbitant premiums when I get back the kind of publicity this will bring in. Yeah, I can see it in the papers now. America's fabulous insurance investigator, Johnny Dollar, sent from Hartford, Connecticut, to guard the life of that fabulous prize swine, Rosie Barron of Iowa.
Well, Mr. Stiller, I don't mind getting my name in the paper for a pig, just so long as it's not in the obituary column. I just couldn't stand having my tombstone read, Johnny Dollar no longer ham. He gave up his life for a great big ham. My tombstone tagline was over the head of Mr. Stiller, but it went over right nicely with Alva Anderson, who paid off with a smile. I parlayed that into a conversation, helped me pass the time while guarding Rollo, the poor man's blue boy. By the time it was over, Alva knew a lot about me, and I knew a lot about pigs. You know, you have beautiful eyes, Alva.
Mr. Dollar, do you know what's really interesting about the origin of swine? Why, it's estimated that the Chinese people domesticated swine about 2,900 BC.
And not only that, but I'm sure you'd like Hartford.
And Mr. Dollar, you probably don't know this, but a pig is one of the most important food animals. It's an economical converter of grain and other feeds into body tissue, the products of which furnish meat and fat for human consumption.
Alva, darling, I'll only be in town for a little while.
And not only that, but people who say that pigs are dirty don't know what they're talking about. Why, sanitation is essential to good health, rapid growth and development, and profitable production.
Oh, Rollo, what have you got that I haven't got? I still don't know whether Alva stuck around because of my charms or Rollo's. But she was still there at the changing of the guard, like Mr. Stiller, in person, came to relieve me long enough for a trip to the dining hall. And what do you think they had for dinner? What else? Baked ham.
Oh, our dinner was wonderful, Johnny.
Coming from you after eating baked ham, that sounds practically cannibalistic.
Oh, Johnny, stop. More coffee?
No, I've had it. Alva, you know, there's something I've been trying to say to you for the past 5 hours.
Yes, Johnny?
Well, it's just that... Oh, I want... Why didn't he blow his siren?
Well, I have to be going. It's time to get Lalo ready for the winner's trade after the grandstand. I'll just run along.
I'll just go with you.
Dollar, I want to talk to you.
Well, I'll see you later, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff,
hey, you being a sort of investigator, Dollar, I knew you'd be interested in my message.
You're sure interfering with mine.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Oh, well, do you know what I did? What? I found that photographer, had that picture developed, and rushed it up to the state capitol. And they just called me. Dollar, there's a known criminal in that photo. He's got that brooch, and he's on the loose. Do you know what that means?
Yeah. It means that you shouldn't be sitting here talking to me. Who is this villain?
They say he's... Who told you?
Yeah.
What? They say he's known as Little Rock. Originally hailed from Arkansas. You know him if you saw him. He's the fellow that bumped into you. I want you to help me look for him.
I take only one job at a time, Sheriff. Right now I gotta take the march. My name is the Grand March. Boy, in case I'm interested later, how much do you pay your special deputy today?
$7. And expensive.
Sheriff Blewett, I'm afraid that blows it. The Carver County Pickle and Pie winners were lining up to lead the Grand March. By the time I got to the grandstand, down at the tag end of the livestock echelon, there was a shiny white cab and trailer, sporting the markings and mottos of the Blue Ribbon Prime Packing Company. And high upon it, perched on a platform and surrounded by a sturdy iron railing, stood that champion, the pride of the Forkset, Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa. It was lovely. It was divine. I had a feeling that swelled my heart with pride. Here they were, products of the American home and the American soil. A fanfare of foodstuffs flowing from the horn of plenty. Just because of my association with Rollo, I felt that I was playing some small part in this gallant parade as it started the first leg of its journey. It was inspiring. It was thrilling. It was... All of a sudden, it was downright frightening. As Rollo's chariot rolled by, I got an eyeful of its driver. It was my comrade in collision, the guy who had put the snatch on Mrs. Tiller's diamond, Little Rocky from Arkansas. I added to my treasury of thankless tasks by trying to pin a tackle on a 5-ton truck. I could go ahead with one hand, and he rolled with one foot. And I come out my feet from an unexpected adversary. Knock him loose, Swallow! He's on the running board! Hey, what? I was flat on my back. Everybody was screaming and hollering and and Rosie Baron of Iowa was one little piggy who wasn't staying at home. In just a moment, the second act of Johnny Dollar. But first, taking in the action from Johnny Dollar, are you? All right, that's good, because staying with CBS is the way you'll head straight for the big return from vacation 8 days from now, Monday the 29th, of Lux Radio Theater and all the other big Monday night CBS favorites. And by staying with CBS, you'll find more action later tonight with Bill Grant of Call the Police and with Sam Spade, who will be heard from on most of these same CBS stations. Now with our star, Charles Russell, we return to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Johnny, are you all right? Can you get up?
Oh, it's good, Willing. I'm not sure about my spine.
Here, let me help.
I'm the guy who goes around telling kiddies never to hitch rides on trucks. Well, nobody can say I didn't make a dent in Iowa.
It was wonderful the way you tried. But what are you going to do now?
Right now, I don't know. The only place I can think of at the moment where I might find a hot pig is a barbecue stand.
Well, this is no time to be funny.
Well, look, up until now, all the laughs are on me, kid, so let me be the judge, huh?
So what are you going to do?
Well, first I'm going to practice my arithmetic and see what adds up. You can't unload a stolen pig in a pawn shop. So, question number one is, where do you unload it? Where would you go?
Well, where would I... Well, I've never thought of it.
Well, here's what I figured. The Rollo on the hook is too well known to peddle for anything like the dough he's really worth. I mean, he's not like a big diamond that you can cut up and live. Pork, you see. What is the going price on pork?
The market this morning was at $23.50.
Oh, that kind of money hardly sounds like Little Rocky's kind of project. But maybe he thinks it's tough. By the way, Alba, have you ever been to Arkansas by any chance?
Why'd you ask?
Just wondered.
Dollar, just a minute, I want to...
Oh, Barnyard blood in himself.
Yeah, Sheriff? Would you mind, Alvin?
I was just reading.
How can she be that cold on such a hot night? Huh? What's bothering you, Sheriff?
Yeah. I saw your little performance, Dollar, when you leapt at that truck. Just how hard was you really trying?
How hard was I? I'm going to punch you in the nose, badge or no badge.
Now, don't you go getting huffy. I just want you to know that I don't fool easy. When I'm on a case, I'm suspicious of everybody.
Yeah, that must be rough on your wife. How often do you have her in handcuffs?
Well,
Sheriff, all I need from you is the use of a car so I can go looking for old Lordhead.
Oh, no, you don't. There's enough messing around here as it is. For all old Miss Tiller's jewelry, and I ain't about to add a county vehicle to the mess. And besides, I want to keep an eye on you.
Good. You might learn something. Come on.
Here, wait a minute. Where are you going?
Over to the Ferris wheel. That truck hasn't been off the fairgrounds more than a couple of minutes. I want to get a look at the countryside.
Ferris wheel. Say, that gives me an idea.
I hoped it would. Come on. Say, Sheriff, I don't know very much about this farm-side sorting racket.
Well, there's more to it than meets the eyes, I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet there is. Tell me, didn't I see a feed trough on Rollo's truck with a lot of mash in it?
No, let's see. If he ate yams this afternoon, he'd eat mash tonight, all right.
Did mash kick up any kind of a smell?
Oh, cows will, but the pig seems to like it.
How does it sound, you, Sheriff? Suppose right after you take your ride to the top of the Ferris wheel to case the countryside, we were to get ourselves a nice hungry pig.
Say, that gives me an idea. We could take that pig and he could smell that mash in the air and sniff out the trail of that truck.
Sheriff, if you aren't a genius, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, Shaw. It was planting time in Iowa that night, at least for ideas. Still which I had planted in the not-too-fertile mind of Sheriff Harry Blewett. And as long as it took us to walk from the trotting track to the Ferris wheel, it came harvest time for notion number one. Big flag with the big flag on the big wheel. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Okay, Mr. Okay, I'm the sheriff. I want you to run me up to the top of that wheel and hold me there long enough for me to get a look around. Oh, when the wheel came to a stop with Harry Blewett sitting in his little cage at the top, I pulled a low trick on a high sheriff. I bought a pink lemonade from the juice stand next to the Ferris wheel, walked over to the motor that rolled the big heap, unscrewed the cap on the gas tank, and gave it a big long drink. I hope it wasn't doing to people's stomachs what it did to that motor. You might well remember this harmless little defeat the next time you have occasion to get rid of a sheriff. This kind of publicity is a little too expensive, Dollar. I demand that you do something. Now, don't worry, Mr. Tiller. I am going to do something. And I'll thank you to remember that the only ones who stand to get hurt right at this point are the insurance companies that wrote the policies on your pig and your wife's diamond brooch.
Why, Wilson, I hadn't thought of that. Why should we worry? My brooch is insured for way over the value here. We hadn't...
Hortense, you keep flapping that loud tongue of yours. The first thing you know, they'll be accusing us.
Why, they wouldn't say...
Oh, yes, we would, Mrs. Tiller.
But that's not the time.
A $15,000 profit on a pig and whatever else you could make on your jewelry might make anybody the type. Now, see here, Dollar. I've had just about enough of your slanderous implications. I have a few thoughts you might profit by.
Go ahead, Williamson.
I'm always interested in profits, so. My father had the same thing happen to him back in 1902.
That's right.
Remember, dear? In Nebraska. He bought a prize pig at a fancy price. And then the scoundrel that sold it to him turned around and stole it back. Yeah, see? See? What do you think of that? Would this be, a suggestion that we throw the young lady who sold your pig to you in the pokey on the strength of something that happened 37 years ago? Well, that's for you to decide, Dollar. Just don't say I didn't warn you. I see. If you don't have an orchid to pin on a young lady, try suspicion. With most of the crowd packed in the grandstand watching the free attraction, I had a good chance to scout the fairground for Alpha Anderson. From home, I wanted to learn a little bit more about the habits of not only pigs, but their ex-owners. A trail led me past the home-baked cake, hybrid corn, the watermelon pickle, tractor and harrow exhibit, and all the way back to where I first met her, Rollo's pen in the swine wing of the livestock building. But when I got there, Rollo's cupboard was bare. Alva was leaving for the rear door in the company of a small, tough-looking gent carrying a sack over his shoulder. Name of Little Rocky from Arkansas. I could hardly believe it when they found us for fun and hauled on up the road. And the risk of adding one last insult to the most recent injury I'd inflicted upon Sheriff Blewett, I stole his car and went dusting up the highway in hot pursuit. There's nothing easier to follow than a red taillight on a clear night. And the bright Mazda Ruby tanked onto the rear of Little Rocky's car led me around the village of Carver and 11 miles out to the pastures to a shack hidden in a grove of elm trees 100 yards off the road. I parked the car and legged it in. It was 25 feet away from the house. I could crawl the roll through an open window. They were all there. Little Rocky, strong-arm man who would knock me off the running board, Alva Anderson, and last but not least, there was Rollo, all 980 pounds of them, and most important to me, still alive.
Here you are, Milo, you stupid clown. Oh, stop. This is all the sweet potatoes that was left. First it goes through them, and then we'll be ready for you, Alva.
Oh, but I told you I don't have it.
We'll see about that later. Hey, Milo, don't get the poker excited. I didn't care. Put the sack on the table. Then when we look at him, I throw him out the window with a wave from him. Now hurry up.
All right. Well, it ain't this one. Ain't this one either. Nope. Ain't this one.
Shut up, just look.
All right.
And from now on, from you, no thinking. Anybody dumb enough to stash a $30,000 hunk of jewelry and think we're going to go see a head doctor.
Oh.
Through the open window, I was being bombarded by sweet potatoes and smash. While making a getaway after ripping the brooch from Mrs. Killer's throat, little Rocky's accomplice had suffered a sudden attack of panic and hidden the brooch in one of Rollo's lunchtime yams. Whether that yam was inside the piggy or out, they and I were apparently just on the verge of learning.
That's something. Ain't here. That means your little friend here had a $30,000 snack today, which right now is giving me a great big bellyache.
You know all about pigs. What do we do about it?
Well, Rocky would yell that he wouldn't rub them out. Look who's talking.
Here, take my 38 if you're so tough.
Yeah, I thought so. Now shut up. Well, I ain't killing no piggy with him just standing there looking at me. If he'd only make a break for it, I'd mow him down.
Now look, baby, we'll kill him if we got it. We want that chunk of ice and we want it fast. Milo, tease him into the corner with a sweet potato.
We're throwing them all out the window.
Oh, please, Mr. Rocky,
You
don't.
shut up too and sit down. Close your eyes if you want to.
Oh, please, Mr. Rocky.
In the manner of Sheriff Blewett, I had an idea, given to me first by Rocky. Albert was sitting in the corner, Rollo was scratching his side by rubbing it against the opposite, and Rocky and Milo were standing shoulder to shoulder in the middle of the room, ready to advance on. I groped around in the dark until I found one of the yams, and taking the sweet potato delicately in my hand, I tossed it through the window so that it would roll to a point just behind Rocky and his pal Milo. Rollo took my bait and getting to it, knocked his two would-be executioners in a heap on the floor. I took a look in there, jumping to the window and applying a kick to the chair, reducing enemies to a state of unconscious surrender. They gave out, Alba gave up, and Rollo gave me a dirty look. Well, Mr. Stiller, here he is, safe and sound, good as new, fat and sassy.
Well, good. Congratulations.
And not only that, but in him someplace, he not only has a good fighting heart, but also that diamond brooch of your wife's.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, I'd better go charter a plane. Rollo is due in Kansas City at noon tomorrow.
Oh, but it might upset him, Mr. Killer. Rosie Barron of Iowa's never flown before, and he might lose weight.
Yeah, what's the big hurry to get him to Kansas City? You booked for a personal appearance?
Oh, no, hardly that. He's due to be slaughtered at a special ceremony. Yes, all the plans are made. Oh, I wouldn't want to disappoint my boys. They've been looking forward to this.
Your wife's almost murdered. Poor Rollo.
Oh, darling.
Come on, let's get out of here, Alva. Gosh, who would have ever thought I, Johnny Dollar, would ever gotten so attached to a pig? Expense account, item 4, $3.50. Dinner for Alva and me. A vegetable dinner, by the way. And speaking of that, reminds me, if you find a $30,000 brooch in a pork chop, it'll only mean that the Blue Ribbon Prime Package Company didn't have much luck when they went looking for it. Expense account item 5, $20. One new gold-plated badge, which I sent to Sheriff Harry Blewett, appeasement, for having stranded him atop that Ferris wheel, for stealing his car, and for suggesting that he use a hungry pig for a bloodhound. Oh, the port of the mash spent all right. Next morning, they found Sheriff Blewett searching an old mash factory, 8 miles the wrong side of town. Item 6, $76.80. Bus and train fare, Carver, Iowa, back to Hartford, Connecticut. Well, I'm still wondering every morning at breakfast time, what else can you eat with eggs? Except ham or bacon or such. And maybe you don't think that's a problem, having known a certain champion named Rollo, Rosie Barron of Iowa. Expense account total $1,463. Yours, truly, Johnny Dollar. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald and stars Charles Russell with script by Paul Dudley and Gil Dowd. Featured in the cast were Farley Bear, Sammy Hill, and John Daner, with Junius Matthews, Ann Morrison, Jack Crucian, and Paul Dubois. Dental Colvig with Rollo. The special music is written and conducted by Lee Stevens. Be sure to be with us at the same time next week when another most unusual expense account is handed in by yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Your hit parade on parade will be back tonight in the familiar CBS Jack Benny time with the great tunes of August 12 years ago. Sweet Leilani and Where or When. Many another still green in your memory will be among the hits you will hear. Speaking of hits, put down August 29th this year in your little book. That's when Arthur Godfrey and his talent shop, the stars of much radio theater, my friend Irma, and Bob Hawke return to join Inner Sanctum. So make your Monday nights a regular date with CBS. This is Roy Rowan speaking. Stay tuned now for your hit parade on parade. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, as gunshots echo across the wind-swept, snow-covered reaches of the wild Northwest, Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice, the breakfast cereal shot from guns, present the challenge of the Yukon. It's Yukon King, swiftest and strongest lead dog of the Northwest, blazing the trail for Sergeant Preston of the Northwest Mounted Police in his relentless pursuit of lawbreakers. On King, on, you husky! Gold discovered in the Yukon, a stampede to the Klondike in the wild race for riches. Back to the days of the gold rush, with Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice, bringing you the adventures of Sergeant Preston and his wonder dog, Yukon King, as they meet the challenge of the Yukon. Say, if at breakfast time you're, yes, hungry as a lion, well, sir, just you dive into a heaping bowlful of delicious Quaker Puffed Rice or Quaker Puffed Wheat. Man, oh man, there's a treat that'll tame the old appetite. In fact, it's the cat's meow. Meow. Yes, these ready-to-serve giant grains are shot from guns, are nourishing, crisp, tender, loaded with nut-like flavor. So tomorrow, enjoy this breakfast treat. Quaker Puffed Rice or Quaker Puffed Wheat. Lorna Elliott had been away to college in the States. But when summer came, she returned to the Yukon to spend her vacation with her brother, Dr. Seth Elliott, who practiced in the mining community of Faro City. On her second morning in Faro City, Lorna encountered the man she had been yearning and yet dreading to see. His name was Jack Rolfe.
Jack.
I heard you were back, Lorna.
I don't think we'd better be seen talking to each other.
What's the matter? Are you afraid it might get back to Seth?
You want to know? Yes, I am.
Why didn't you ever write to me, Lorna? While you were away in the States?
Don't you realize that I couldn't? Seth made me promise that I wouldn't write to you or see you ever again.
What right has he to dictate whether you can or can't see me?
Please try to understand, Jack. I owe everything to Seth. He's even putting me through college.
Big-hearted Seth. The only reason he's sending you to college is to keep us apart.
That's not fair, Jack. Seth has taken care of me ever since I was a little girl. He's been wonderful to me.
It was no more than his duty to take care of you. After all, he's your brother.
He's my guardian, too.
If it weren't for that, would you marry me?
Well, Oh, please don't ask me that. Don't you see that... Jack.
What's the matter?
It's Seth. He's seen us and he's coming over here.
Let him come.
Lorna, I thought you promised me you wouldn't see this fellow again.
Please don't make a scene, Seth.
Listen, Elliot. I'm getting pretty fed up with your high-handed tactics.
No one's talking to you, Rolf, so keep your remarks to yourself.
For your information, Lorna and I happen to love each other. What's more, I've just asked her to marry me.
Save your breath, Rolf. The answer's no.
What have you got against me?
I won't mince words. You're not good enough for Lorna.
If you think I can't support her properly, you're wrong. My stepbrother and I struck it rich last winter. Our mine is worth at least $50,000.
That doesn't alter the situation one bit. The point is, I don't intend to let Lorna throw herself away on any roughneck sourdough.
You've got better plans for her, I suppose?
You bet I have. Lorna's attending one of the finest schools in the East. She's moving in a completely different world from Faro City. You don't belong in that world, Rolf, and you might as well know it right now.
You think you're pretty high and mighty, Elliot, but you're not going to keep Lorna and me apart any longer.
I'm warning you, Rolf. Stay away from my sister from now on. If you don't, I swear I will...
Please don't quarrel anymore. The whole town's watching.
Let him rave, Lorna. It's time we had a showdown. Go ahead, Elliot. Go ahead and tell me what you're going to do if I don't stay away from Lorna.
Rolf, I'll give you till tomorrow morning to make up your mind that you aren't going to see Lorna anymore.
What if I tell you I'm going to keep right on seeing her?
Then you'd better keep out of range of my gun.
So it's gunplay you want, huh, Elliot? Maybe you'd like to suggest a place for a meeting?
I'll be waiting for you down on Hangman's Creek at 8 tomorrow morning.
Seth, you must be out of your mind. You
Get out of this, Lorna. I'll have something to say to you when we get home. As for you, Rolf, this is your last warning. If you don't change your tune by tomorrow morning, I'll gun you down with no more compunction than I'd shoot a mad dog.
Wait a minute, Doc.
If there's going to be any gunplay, it'll have to be done fair and square.
Meaning what?
Meaning you'll have to have a regular duel. Ain't that so, Father?
You want to make sure everything's done fair and square? Come along and see for yourself.
That suits me fine. I want plenty of witnesses on hand when I drill this polecat.
Jack Rolfe's stepbrother was a man named Abe Slater. A short time after the crowd had dispersed, Slater walked into the North Star Cafe. He signaled to a tough-looking white man who was seated at a table with a shifty-eyed half-breed. The white man rose from his chair.
You wait here, Muckler. Look like Slater wanted to see me in the back room about something. Wait. What do you want to see me about, Slater?
Listen, Finn, have you heard about that duel my stepbrother's going to fight with Doc Elliott?
Everybody in town heard about it.
Suppose I tell you it's worth $1,000 to me to have Doc Elliott win that duel.
You mean you want your brother to get killed?
Jack Rolfe ain't my brother, he's my stepbrother.
I still don't savvy. What you got against Rolfe?
Look, Finn, I'm hiring you to do a job. Why I want that job done is none of your business.
You ain't hired me to do nothing yet. Before I take any job from you, I want to know the whole deal.
All right. Jack Rolfe and me are co-owners of the Faro Prince's mine.
Yeah, I know that. And it's plenty rich mine, too.
Neither one of us has any close relatives except each other. In other words, I'm Jack's next of kin.
So if anything ever happened to Yak, his share of the mine would pass to you.
You catch on quick.
Yeah, it's a smart idea, Slater. But how you going to make sure Yak gets killed? For all you know, Doc Elliott will be the one who stops Slade.
That's where you come in.
How do you figure?
When the duel comes off tomorrow morning, suppose someone is hiding close by. Out of sight of the crowd, but within gun range of the duelers.
Go on.
The two duelers start walking away from each other. Pretty soon they get the signal to turn and fire. When that happens, the person that's hiding already has a bead on Jack. When their two guns go off, his goes off too.
and Jack gets plugged right between the eyes.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. But things might not work out smooth as you figure.
What do you mean?
Suppose Yak kills Doc Elliott before Doc gets a chance to fire. In that case, how you going to explain Yak getting plugged? Or suppose Doc himself happens to hit Yak. How you going to explain the fact that 2 bullets hit him?
I've already thought of that. You just listen to what I'm going to tell you now.
It was later that same morning that Abe Slater called on Dr. Elliott. The doctor greeted his visitor curtly.
What do you want, Slater?
It's about that duel tomorrow morning, Doc.
What about it?
Well, Jack ain't so sure he wants to go through with the duel after all.
You mean he's turned yellow?
Well, let's say he's decided to be reasonable about Lorna.
Am I to understand from that he's willing to keep away from her from now on?
That's about it.
In that case, there needn't be any duel. Tell him he can stop worrying. It won't be necessary for me to puncture his mangy hide.
That sure is decent of you, Doc. Only it isn't as simple as all that.
Why isn't it?
Faro City's a pretty tough place, Doc. If the boys ever found out that Jack turned yellow, he'd be laughed out of town.
What am I supposed to do? Take out my handkerchief and weep?
Well, it's like this. Jack wants to know if you wouldn't be willing to put on a fake duel.
A fake duel?
Yeah, a duel that would look like a real gunfight. Only you'd fire over Jack's head and he'd fire over your head.
What is this? Some scheme that you and Rolf have cooked up?
It's no trick, Doc. Honest, it isn't. You can tell your sister beforehand what the arrangement is. You know doggone well Jack wouldn't try any funny stuff under those circumstances.
I suppose you're right. But why should I be party to any such farce just for Rolf's sake?
What do you got to lose, Doc? If you don't agree to this scheme, Jack will probably have to fight you just to save his face. So why don't you play along and avoid bloodshed? After all, Jack's willing to promise he'll stay away from Lorna.
Oh, very well.
What are you laughing about, Doc?
I can hardly wait to tell Lorna about this.
After leaving the doctor's cabin, Abe Slater went to the mine in search of his stepbrother. He told Jack a story similar to the one he had just told Dr. Elliott.
And the doc told me that if you do like he asks, he won't make any more trouble about you and Lorna seeing each other.
What's the idea of this fake duel business?
Oh, that's just to save his face. He's afraid that if people ever found out how he turned yellow, he'd be laughed right out of town.
There's something fishy about all this.
Why do you say that?
It seems to me Doc Elliott is changing his tune awful sudden-like. He hates me. I wonder if this couldn't be a trick.
A trick? What kind of a trick?
He gets me to aim high. And then when I fire over his head, he lets me have it.
Oh, listen, Jack. Elliott may be an ornery cuss, but you know he wouldn't pull a trick like that. Besides, he says if you don't trust him, I can go over this evening and get it straight from Lorna herself.
In that case, I guess it must be on the level.
Well, how about it?
All right. Tell him if he'll stop interfering between Lorna and me, I'll fight that fake duel with him. Just the way he asks.
Meanwhile, Lorna Elliott had gone to Dawson City to get help from Sergeant Preston.
Miss Elliott, as a member of the Northwest Mounted Police, it's my job to prevent gunplay. I can promise you that duel will not take place.
Then you will come back with me?
I'll be ready to leave as soon as I've notified the inspector. Come on, King. You and I are going to Faro City with Miss Elliott.
It was evening when the sergeant and Lorna Elliott arrived back in Faro City. The doctor was seated in his cabin mixing a prescription as they entered.
Lorna, where the dickens have you been all this time? Why, I beg your pardon, Sergeant. I didn't see you.
Hello, Doctor.
Seth, I went to Dawson and brought back Sergeant Preston. He's going to stop this crazy duel between you and Jack.
I'm afraid you've made a useless trip, Sergeant.
Huh? How's that?
Jack Rolfe is not quite so willing to risk his hide as he pretended he was.
What do you need?
The fact is, he's turned yellow.
Oh.
We'll continue our story in just a moment. Old King Cole was a merry old soul. Yes, a merry old soul was he. That is, until one fine morning at the breakfast table when he called for his pipe and he called for his bowl.
Thunderation! What is this?
What is what, Your Majesty?
Look! Just look at my bowl.
Yes, Your Highness.
Why, the bowl's empty. There's nothing in it.
Well, you see...
But where is it?
Where's what, Your Highness?
What? My Quaker puffed wheat.
That's what?
Well, you see, a terrible thing has happened. We're fresh out of Quaker Puffed wheat.
Fresh out?
Yes. You see, you had 2 helpings yesterday morning. Emptied the package. And, well, we forgot to order more.
Oh.
And, well, sir, you absolutely refused to eat any other kind of breakfast cereal.
Oh.
But, may I make a suggestion?
Out with it, knave.
Might I suggest you just try this?
Try what?
This Quaker Puffed rice.
Well, all right. Quaker Puffed rice, did you say?
Yep, it's shot from guns, too, just like the wheat.
Looks good.
Say, these are premium grains, exploded up to 8 times normal size to make them crisp and tender. Bigger and better tasting. They're shot through and through with swell nut-like flavor, too.
Say, does this ever taste good?
And it's good for you. Quaker Puffed rice as well as Quaker Puffed wheat are nourishing. Both delicious kinds furnish added food values of restored natural grain amounts of vitamin B1, niacin, and iron.
Now, say, Jay, now here's what. From now on, let's keep both kinds on hand. We'll eat Quaker Puffed wheat one day and Quaker Puffed rice the next.
Well, it's a deal. And say, fellas and girls, you should try just that in your home. And here's another tip. Keep a good supply of both kinds on hand at all times. Yes, enjoy the breakfast fit for a king. Eat Quaker Puffed rice and Quaker Puffed wheat. Shot from guns. Now to continue our story. When Lorna and Sergeant Preston arrived at Dr. Elliott's cabin, he told them that Jack Rolfe was afraid to go through with the duel.
I can't believe it.
Certainly doesn't sound like Jack Rolfe.
That's not all. Wait till you hear the rest.
The rest?
It seems Rolfe doesn't want anyone to know what a yellow pup he is. He's afraid he'll get laughed out of town if folks ever find out. So he wants to put on a fake duel.
What do you mean?
Well, he wants us to go ahead and pretend we're fighting a real duel. But we'll each fire harmlessly over the other man's head.
And what did you say?
I wasn't going to at first, but I finally agreed.
Well, Doctor, I'm afraid I'm going to have to interfere with those arrangements.
How so?
Dueling is just as much against the law in the Yukon Territory as it is anywhere else in Canada. Therefore, there's not going to be any duel tomorrow morning, harmless or otherwise.
Sergeant Preston left the Elliott's cabin and set out to find Jack Rolfe. In the streets of Faro City, he drew rein at the sight of Abe Slater.
Well, what are you doing in town, Sergeant?
I came here to stop the duel between your stepbrother and Dr. Elliott. I've already seen the doctor. Now I'm looking for Jack.
Maybe you don't know it, Sergeant, but that duel is going to be a fake.
Dr. Elliott told me that. But duels of any kind are against the law, and I intend to stop this one. Can I find Jack at the mine?
As a matter of fact, you can, Sergeant. He went over to Beaver Creek on business.
When will he be back?
Maybe not for another hour or two yet. Would you like me to give him the message?
No, thanks, but you might tell him to look me up as soon as he gets back to town. I'll be staying at the Maple Leaf Hotel.
Why, sure, Sergeant, I'll do that.
Come on, Bucky.
Abe Slater went to the cafe and spoke to Finn in the back room.
What's up, Slater?
Sergeant Preston's in town, and he's aiming to stop the duel.
Don't he know it's going to be a fake?
Yeah, but he's still going to try and stop it. He's already talked to Doc Elliott, and now he's looking for Jack.
Oh, that ain't good.
We gotta get that Mountie out of town and keep him away till the duel is all over with.
How you gonna do that?
Well, suppose Preston gets a note from Mountie headquarters telling him to come back to Dawson City right away, saying he's needed on urgent business or something. He'd have to obey orders, wouldn't he?
Yeah, guess he would at that.
Only who's going to give him a note so he won't get suspicious?
What about Mukluk Yo?
You mean that Siwash half-breed that trails around after you all the time?
Sure, he's sitting out in the cafe right now.
Think he'll do it?
For little fire water, he'd do practically anything.
Suppose he squeals on us afterwards.
No, he wouldn't dare. I got enough on him to hang him. Besides, I saved his life once. That's why he follows me around all the time.
All right, get him in here, and I'll start writing out the note.
A short time later, Sergeant Preston was approached by the half-breed Mukluk Joe in front of the hotel.
You, Sergeant Preston?
That's right.
Bring note. Dawson City.
Oh, thanks. Let's see what it says. Return at once to Dawson City. You're needed here urgently. Signed, the inspector. Who gave you this note?
Man, Money headquarters give note.
What did he look like?
Not remember. Wear red coat. Think him inspector.
Very well. Did he pay you to bring this note to Faro City?
He give $10. Say you give $5, note delivered.
All right, here's your money.
May go now.
Sergeant Preston checked out of the hotel and rode out of Faro City with King trotting at his side. About a mile out of town, he halted.
Whoa, Lucky. Easy now. No, King, I'm not going to Dawson. I'm going to stop here and make camp. You see, fella, there's something funny about that note. I've never yet seen Inspector Maynard sign himself the inspector. What's more, that half-breed couldn't tell us what he looked like. I think the whole thing was just a trick to get us out of town. But we're not going to fall for it, boy.
Sergeant Preston wrote a short note. And then he said,
All right, King, I'm going to tie this note to your collar. Take it to Inspector Maynard, fella. Inspector Maynard, back in Dawson City.
Meanwhile, Abe Slater had gone to Dr. Elliott's cabin.
What is it this time, Slater?
I want to know if you're still aiming to fight that duel tomorrow morning.
The duel is off. Sergeant Preston won't allow it.
Sergeant Preston's left town, Doc. He had to go back to Dawson City.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the duel is still off.
Boys around town are going to be mighty disappointed.
What do you mean?
And they're all counting on you and Jack fighting that duel now that Preston's out of the way. As a matter of fact, they've been hounding Jack ever since Preston left. They're saying he's yellow if he doesn't go ahead and shoot it out with you.
So now he's sending you around to fix up another fake gunfight, is that it?
You guessed it, Doc.
Well, the answer's no. Preston has laid down the law, and that's all there is to it.
Well, in that case, Jack says he don't see no reason for keeping that promise about Lorna.
What's that? Oh, so that's the game.
Shucks, you can't blame the kid, Doc.
Hey, well, we'll fight that duel tomorrow morning. But I'm warning you, Slater. If Rolfe tries to back out of the bargain afterwards and starts hanging around Lorna again, I'll gun him down regardless of Sergeant Preston or the whole Northwest Mounted Police Force.
It was long after midnight when King arrived in Dawson City. He went to Inspector Maynard's cabin.
Why, King, what in heaven's name are you doing here? Come on in, fella. Just a minute now till I light the lamp. That's better. Well, I'll be... You've got a note tied to your collar. Let's have a look at it. Inspector Maynard. Just received a message, supposedly from you, ordering me back to Dawson City.
The inspector read the note and then said to King,
Your master was right, King. I never sent such a message. Right out on answering, you'd better take it back to the sergeant right away.
Early the next morning, Abe Slater went to Finn's shack on the outskirts of Faro City.
Listen, Finn, there's been a change of plans.
What's up?
Andy Gower came into town late last night and said he saw Sergeant Preston camped about a mile outside of town.
You mean he never fell for that note after all?
Yeah, it looks that way. He's probably planning to stay out of sight till 8 o'clock. Then catch everybody red-handed, just as the duel begins.
Oh, that gums up the whole plan, don't it?
Oh, not by a long shot. You see, as soon as the boys in town heard Preston was hanging around to stop the duel, they went and told Jack and Doc Elliott they'd have to fight their duel an hour early. 7 instead of 8.
Sounds like the whole town is just as anxious to have this shooting match come off as you are, Slater.
Yeah, there's plenty of excitement, all right. The boys are all placing bets on who's going to win. Now, you and Muckluck go over to Hangman's Creek. Get settled in your hideout right now. The crowd will likely start over that way in another half hour or so.
Right, boss. You just leave it to me.
Shortly before 7 o'clock, Sergeant Preston stood beside his horse at his campsite outside of town.
I hate to leave here before King gets back, but I guess we'd better ride into town and keep an eye on things. If that note was a trick, someone's awfully anxious to have that duel come off on schedule. Easy, Blackie, easy.
Get up, fella. Come on up.
Arriving in Faro City, Sergeant Preston was surprised to find the town deserted.
Good lucky. Slow. Easy. Easy now.
That's funny. Should be someone up and around even at 7 in the morning. I wonder if they've decided to hold that duel early. Better get out to Hangman's Creek and investigate. Come on, Blackie!
Meanwhile, King was approaching the sergeant's camp outside of town. All night long, the great dog had been traveling. His coat was caked with mud, and every muscle in his body ached, but he pressed forward gamely. Soon he would be feeling the touch of his master's hand and hearing warm words of welcome and praise. To King's surprise and disappointment, the longed-for moment of rest and welcome would have to be postponed. The great dog paused for a moment to pick up the sergeant's scent. Then he faced wearily toward town and started off in pursuit of his master. On Hangman's Creek, the moment of the duel had finally arrived. Excitement ran high among the mob of onlookers that had streamed out from town. No one in the crowd except Abe Slater knew that two men lay hidden in a dense thicket on the hillside overlooking the scene of the duel.
You got carbine ready, Finn? I sure have, McCluck. I'm keeping a bead right on Yak Rolf's head. The minute he turns around to fire, I'll plug him right between the eyes.
The crowd think Doc Elliott killed him, huh?
Yeah, that's
it. Hey, look like duel's gonna start.
All right, I told you what to do now. I'm going to start counting.
At the moment Abe Slater began counting, Sergeant Preston was racing toward the hillside. Both Finn and Muckluck saw him.
It's Preston. He's coming to stop the duel. They fixed him. Oh, not your gun. We don't want no noise. Use your knife.
As Sergeant Preston drew closer, Muckluck poised his knife, ready to hurl it straight at the Mounty's heart. King, hearing the sounds of the mob, had taken a shortcut over terrain which the sergeant's horse could not cover. His keen eyes saw the two men crouching in the thicket, and he realized that the upraised knife was meant for Sergeant Preston. The great dog wanted to warn his master, but his breath was coming in painful gasps, and his lungs were already straining to bursting. Summoning his last ounce of strength, King drove toward the thicket.
Hey, let's go!
King's attack threw both crooks off balance, and Finn's shot went wild.
Hey, where'd that dog come from?
Easy. Finn swung his carbine to aim at the sergeant, as the Mountie fired first.
Oh, my arm! Help! Good dog!
He won't hit you. All right, boy. On guard. I'll take over now. Get on your feet, both of you.
A moment later, the sergeant and his two prisoners were surrounded by a milling mob.
What carnage is going on here?
Search me. Just as Jack and Doc fired at each other, things started happening up here on the hill.
Look, it's Finn and that sidewalk's trail ahead. Hey, Sergeant, what were them two sidewinders up to?
Finn was all set to shoot Jack with a carbine, just as he and Dr. Elliott turned to face each other.
Right, that dirty polecat. We ought to string him up.
No, it wasn't my idea. Abe Slater was the one who planned it.
No one's going to string anyone up. The law will deal with these two.
Hey, buongiorno. Good morning. Ciao, cari. Welcome. Benvenuto to our daily Monday to Friday radio program here at King Radio. Per voi tutte, for all of you. That's the name of the program. 2 hours of talking Italian, in English, or mezzo. It's your choice. A vostra scelta. You may meet a doctor, a lawyer, a social worker, a priest, a politician, or a beautician. Chiedete consigli, parlate, ma non parlate assai, senza dire niente. Parlate poco e dite assai. 2 hours of chiacchiere tra noi, senza cattiveria. That's what this program is all about. It's all for nice people like you. Brava gente come voi. And now, after I clear the smoke in my eyes, here is your host,